weather's holding up. The weather's looking okay. We got kind of sunny, partly cloudy, high clouds, and so it's kind of a pleasant. It got a little windy. I got up this morning, and it was calm out. There's no wind. It's actually pretty quiet, pretty peaceful. And then I got back up later on in the morning and went outside, and it was like, it's like a wind tunnel. I was like, what the heck happened? So I don't know. But the weather right now is good. I'm gonna be doing some outdoor activity. I said I wanted to do some outdoor activity and get myself out. I've been going to the gym, so I try to go to the gym maybe three times a week. Right now I'm not back into like my whole like regular schedule. Usually I was going 4 days a week, trying to give myself some in-between time. But now it's like I'm kind of like playing things by ear a bit, because like on any given day I'm just not sure how I'm going to be feeling, or if the schedule's going to allow for it, just depending on what's going on during the week. That I'm like, I gotta shift my schedule on the workout. So last year, the year before, I was kind of holding to certain days of the week. Like you go work out on Monday, and what I was finding is like I couldn't work out on Monday because it was like so packed. You go out to a gym on Monday, and you go during like high tide. So anytime like between like 5 and 9 o'clock, and it's just high traffic. There's just so many people working out. Like everybody's trying to start the week up. They just started on Monday, and then they got to go and work out at the gym. So, but it's a lot of young people over at the gym where I'm at right now. It doesn't seem like there are some older folk, some older individuals that are there, but it's I want to say for the most part it's kind of a young crowd that works out there. And so I've been going to the gym, trying to get back into it 3 days a week. It's kind of like I want to make that the minimum, because you're paying for a gym membership for nothing. Then it's kind of like who wants to? I've already lived that experience. If you've never lived that experience, then you've probably never gone to the gym before in your life. And if you've never experienced it, you've gone to a gym your whole life, like, good for you, because that's like one of the craziest things, to have to pay for a gym and not use the membership. So, and I've lived that nightmare, and I remember I just could not get down to the gym. I don't know what it was. I would try, but just the motivation wasn't there, or wanting to travel or to go work out and then be like, I gotta work out. Like it just wasn't there. So there's certain things that I've had to do to get myself to work out, to be motivated, so that when I get there, I'm kind of like, all right, well, there's like minimum, workout routine that I'll do. And then there's during the time of the year where I'm like trying to work out to look better, because it's either the summer season, swimming pool season, or whatever it is that, people are, taking their shirts off and showing off bikini body, and being like, all right, I gotta work out a little bit so that I'm not looking like I'm like, Homer Simpson or something. So yeah, that's just me. So getting to the gym is good, but it's the weekend, and to be in the gym during the week and then be there during the weekend. I do work out during the weekend, but today's Saturday. I wanted to get out, wanted to do a little bit of hiking. Let's see, news. What's going on in the news? I did hear there was mention that New York State went ahead and they went ahead and found Trump guilty. I guess what the case is, because there's just so many things going on right now, and with this past year, and like just with the past 4 years, the way that it's been, in particular for Donald Trump and everything that he's gone through ever since he got out of office, it's been like one thing after another for him. So, what I was reading or what I heard was that I think they said they found him guilty, New York State, and then they said they wanted $350 million in order to settle up with what they found he did wrong. Which I think what they were saying, if it's the case that I remember, because I think there's like two cases, and in one case it had to do with property. So at one point in 2020, I think they had said that he, in his taxes, he went and overvalued one of his properties. I don't know if it was Trump Tower, or I don't know exactly which property it was, but supposedly he had like overestimated the value of his building, one of his property, Trump Tower, let's say. And so $350 million is what they're claiming is that he, was found guilty for having now have to pay, which I think is ridiculous. I think this whole case and what New York has done over the past few years and how it's gone about, governing the state, its leadership, like those people that are in positions of power at the moment, that, these are not forever elected officials. They're appointees, call them what you want. They're not forever people. They're supposed to represent the state, and they're supposed to represent not political ideology or political party affiliation, but they're supposed to represent, the state itself and look out for the state. And so, in thinking about it and the process, I mean, my understanding is that Donald Trump was the president of the United States of America, all right? From the years of 2017 to 2019, 2020, however they officially call it, up until 2020, where Biden won. Now, he was the president those 4 years, and as far as what he did and how he was, running the country from an administrative perspective and from a presidential elected official, I thought he was doing the job. I thought he understood the position, and he was looking at it from business points of view, from business aspects, but also from country, thinking about how do we go about making the country, great again, and how do we go about like fixing the problems that this country has found itself in, because the country is not the same that it used to be. It just isn't. It's no longer the country of the 1900s. And as far as saying that the country has a future ahead of itself and that things are going to be great, I think they've run the course of technology. I don't, if you can't afford technology, you can't afford technology. I could not afford anything in the 2000s. I had no money. I had just graduated college. I had no money. I didn't have a job or job experience for me to be able to like afford anything. And yet I was supposed to have a laptop, a desktop, a cell phone, supposed to be able to connect to the internet, all of this stuff right at the turn of the century. And it was one of those things. I was like, this is a joke, right? Like, this isn't real. And people made it seem as if like everything was just free. Like all you had to do was just go and find a place that sold computers or something and just be like, yeah, I'd like a computer, and like they would just give you a computer for free. And it's like, no, dude, like that's not how it was. Things are expensive, and I don't know if someone's going to tell me things are more expensive than they were back then they probably never started out poor. Because if you had money starting out, like I look at these families nowadays, okay, here's how everybody does it with the family stuff. If you have like 1 or 2 kids, or 3 kids, or 4 kids, like everything is hand-me-down. So the father gets a phone, that phone is going to have its course. When the kid gets of that age where it's kind of like, hey dad, I'm at that age where I need to have like a cell phone. All my friends, they all have cell phones. So it's one of those things. I'm gonna start asking you for a cell phone. And so all that really happens is that it's all repurposed. It's all hand-me-down stuff from like the father, most likely, or the mother, whoever, if they both have phones, then it just comes down to like, okay, these are like, we used to have hand-me-downs when I was growing up, like clothes. And those clothes were the hand-me-downs. Nobody handed down a cell phone and was like, here, little brother, this is the cell phone that dad gave me. And now I'm going to give you this phone because now this is the phone that you're going to use because now you need a phone. No. We were talking about wearing clothes on our backs and having shoes on our feet. That's what we did back in the day. And so, nowadays, it's not like that at all. At all. I mean, apparently, money to buy clothes isn't an issue. The issue is technology. Now, I don't know if it works with the same way with video games. Because, like, nowadays, you gotta understand, my generation, like, they grew up, like, I played video games, yes. I'm not one of these guys, though, that has Xbox, PlayStation, whatever it is, PlayStation 12, Xbox, -1, the -1, the virtual reality version or whatever it is that they come up with to gimmick the whole situation. The Cube, the Matrix, the Diamond, Xbox, whatever it is that they come up with, right? And then say that, my kids now my kids are playing video games. Now I'm gonna give them the hand-me-down, and now I'm gonna go get the latest and greatest whatever for myself. Because this is what happens. And these video games, they've been getting played since, the 1900s, the end of the 1900s. And so between the 90s and into the 2000s, like these consoles, these gaming systems, just one thing after another, to the point where then you had a gaming computer. You know what I mean? And it was like, okay, so now there's a gaming computer, and how much is that going to cost? Like, I'm a single guy. You know how much money people spend on video games? A lot of money. Hundreds of dollars a year to play video games. And then I guess they tried to stymie it by putting, apps on the phone, having gaming apps, because people need to play games at this point. It's part of the culture. It's part of the existence of, societies now, where like you have to have some technological gaming, system, whether it's your cell phone or a gaming console or a gaming computer, to go and play video games. Right? So most people, that's their mindset, like, that's it. And even you have older folk generation that are, people in their 70s, that play video. I wouldn't be surprised if there's people in their 80s that are playing, going on Xbox Live or going on, PlayStation, whatever, 11, 12, 15, whatever it's on now. So, I mean, this is the reality. This is the reality. And then, to go back to, New York and things that have gone on in the state, to say that people, how much can you afford if you're in New York? Forget your taxes. Forget saying, you're not going to write your video game system off. You're not going to write your gaming system off unless that's what you do for a living and that's your business. And that's, you do some YouTube channel or something like that, and all you do is video games, and now that's part of your business. Otherwise, all these people that play video games, like, they're not, how are you going to write that off on your taxes? And these are things that they're like, they're necessity. They're not even seen. I'm surprised if they don't have, like schools, kids, they'll say, well, cell phone, you need a cell phone, you need a laptop. Those are like requirements. Like, you can't be a student in this day and age and not have those things. So if you have 2 kids, 3 kids, now what people will say, well, the school now supplies the laptop or the tablet. And like, to me, this is just like, I'm like, I did not grow up in this society, man. Like, this society, like, they did not give us laptops. They did not give us cell phones. They did not give us tablets. They just didn't. Like, as students, like, if I went to elementary school and we had like a Commodore 64 that we used, like, I don't even think we had mice back then. Like, the mouse came later, like using a mouse, and it wasn't even a mouse that was wireless. It was like a corded mouse that you had to like plug into the hard drive, into the computer, in order to have like a cursor go around the screen. Like, that's how far back I go. And so all this technology, touchscreen technology, wireless technology, Bluetooth connectivity, and all of this type of stuff, at what price and at what cost? And New York used to be the cutting edge. New York used to be like the state, like, people would look to in order to understand, like, like, what's on the edge? Like, what's the future look like? Now, I'm like, I seriously doubt thinking about New York when it comes to thinking about, technology, and then thinking about cutting edge. About all they have is traffic. That's what New York has. If someone's gonna question that, like, I don't know if there'll ever be a time when, someone says they went to New York and there was like no traffic. They're like, what do you mean there's no traffic? Like, New York has no traffic. I don't know, like, all the people left, or they're no longer there, they don't exist anymore. I don't know where they went to, but like, they're no longer, there's people no longer in New York. There's no traffic. You know what I mean? And so to listen to $350 million on a piece of property, that, again, I believe this is the case having to do with, like, it was like on the taxes, and this was the whole thing. They said they wanted to see his taxes. So they wanted to see his taxes, what? To make public record of it? Because the IRS, I mean, what was it? This, again, they want to see the taxes for what purpose? To go after, to put a public record out there, to now say that, oh, here's your public record, and now we're going to throw that in the public media's arena, and now say that, what? Now look, Trump owes $350 million. Why? Because you needed to make his public records, his tax records, public? So that you can get, what, $350 million out of a piece of property? Because New York needs the money. Trust me, if all those people in New York have to buy cell phones and laptops and computers and all this type of stuff, and clothes, and then they have to buy clothes too, and they're not even doing hand-me-downs, like, I don't know how you survive in New York. I don't know how you do it. I mean, people were buying phones left and right, like nobody's business. Like, leasing cars. Like, it was just like, oh, you have an old phone. That's what they say every time I have a problem with my phone. I'll contact my mobile provider, and they'll be like, oh, you have a really old phone. And in the process, I'm like, my phone, like, what do you mean I have a really old phone? Like, what is old? I do not understand what old is. And there's this attitude at least in the states that I lived, where it's like old is anything that isn't new. And new is anything like that just got released like right this second. Because if it wasn't released like yesterday or today, like it's old. Like you can buy a car, a 2024 car, and that car, they'll be like, oh, it's a new car. Okay, so when does your car become old? I mean, if you only put so many miles on a car and you never drive it, is it still a new car? If you get it in 2024 and you never put it, you never drive it, you never put it on the road, you didn't take it anywhere, it's got under 10,000 miles, like, isn't the car still considered new? Or is it an old car? You're like, oh, that's an old car. That's, that's not a new car, that's an old car now. Like, wouldn't your car have to have miles on it? Like, wouldn't your car have to have some, like, maintenance records to be like, well, it is an old car, like, you've used the car. But how do you say that it's, something is old or something is new when it's like it's still in use? You're like, yeah, this thing still works, Oh, but that's an old phone. Like, I don't want to go into it right now as far as, like, what it is that, I had to go through just on the conversation, because I was just kind of like, every time, man, every time, they got to be like, oh, this is an old phone. Like, that's supposed to sell me. Like, I don't know if they say that and that triggers people, and then those people are all like, this is an old phone. Like I need a new phone. Like, you would have to have just bought the phone today for them to be like, oh, this is a new phone. Like, your phone is new. Or if you just got the phone. Because I think they were trying to sell me on, like, not a new phone, but just, like, upgrade the technology. And I'm just like, oh, my God, dude. And then I'll get the phone, and you know what they'll do? They'll release right at that time, because they track all this stuff, right? There's not no way that, they'll say, oh, your phone needs 5G technology. You got old technology in your phone. I'll get a 5G phone. What do you think they'll come out with, in 6 months' time? They'll have 6G capabilities. And I'll be like, yo, what the heck, dude? So it's unending. It's unending. Like, New York needs money. The telephone companies, they need money. You know what I mean? Your kids, they want things. They, if you have kids, like, how are you managing? How are you managing to pay for the things that a child needs? I think they said, when I looked at one of the statistics, or, through the course of a lifetime, I think they said a child is like $1 million or something like that. Like, taking care of a child, it's going to be like $1 million through the course of the lifetime that you're going to pay in order to have the child. I'm like, $1 million? Like, just to have the kid? I'm like, this is crazy. And people do it. And everybody's just like, it must be fun. Like I guess for Donald Trump, they must think like, oh, $350 million. Like, that's a lot of money for me. But for Donald Trump, that's like, peanuts. He could probably, I don't know, just write a check. Here, write a check. $350 million. There you go. Shh. There you go. $350 million, New York. And then act like $350 million is nothing to the debt that they're in. And I was saying it earlier. I said, if they're going after Donald Trump, who was the president of the United States, and who happened to be a New Yorker, he was from New York. This is how the New York State leadership is treating the former president, who happens to be from New York. I mean, how many times I asked the question? I said, who was the last president, or who was a president that happened to be from New York? Like, when was the last time there was a president from New York, if there was ever any? And it so happened when I asked the question, someone was in the room that was like, oh yeah, that was Theodore Roosevelt. And then I said, okay, So you know that he's from New York, and then I verified it. He's from New York City. At least that's where they said he was born, raised, I guess. Okay, he's from New York City. And then I asked him, I said, when was he president, though? Like, you know that he's from New York, but when was he the president of the United States? Because Theodore Roosevelt was president of the United States at one point in the country's history. And so it so happens that he was president back in 1901, so right at the turn of the century. Now, that's going back. That's going back in the day, to where the man understood the 1800s. So, and New York, what was New York back in the turn of the century? What was it like in 1901? What did that place look like? And it so happened that was when the last president, because I didn't ask what other New Yorkers there were. It just so happened that someone happened to know that Theodore Roosevelt was from New York City. So if I were to go back and ask Google, hey Google, who were the presidents of the United States that were from New York? Now I know Theodore Roosevelt was one of them back at the turn of the century in 1901, and that President Donald Trump, who is from Queens. So, two people, Theodore Roosevelt, who has always had a reputation of being like this persona of a person, wildlife and rough rider, adventurer, he traveled to Africa, did safaris and all of this type of stuff. And then, Donald Trump, billionaire, property manager, understands how to build businesses. And then you're saying on his taxes, he doesn't know how to evaluate his property, like how much his property is on his taxes. And he's the president of the United States. And the only way that they were able to get into his taxes is because they had to make it of a public record in order for them to be able to look at it. I mean, this is the stuff that, again, in this country, this is what's been going on. This is what's been going on. I'm going to leave it like that for now because I want to go and take my walk. I want to go on my hike. And hopefully I can just be in nature and enjoy the day and not freeze myself out here. Because like I said, it got windy. So, all right. Hopefully you guys are having a good weekend. If anything, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.